On the outside, Maya was the picture of calm at her husband's party, but this is what was truly going through her mind. They say every woman wears a mask. Mine has been perfectly crafted over many years. It's the smile of a supportive wife, the nod of a dutiful daughter-in-law, the silence of someone who knows she doesn't belong. That night, at the dinner celebrating my husband's virtual success, I was still wearing that mask. I listened to the flattery, the subtle jabs aimed at me, and I waited because I knew it would come. The final word, the last straw that would shatter this mask. And it came from the very husband I had sacrificed everything for. "How does it feel to be a loser?" he asked. And in that moment I knew the real loser wasn't me. And just like that, the stage was set for the mask to finally fall. Have you ever felt like you were playing a role, just waiting for the right moment to be yourself? Let us know your story in the comments below, no matter where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe, because the best part of this drama is just beginning. The restaurant shimmered under the glow of crystal chandeliers, their light dancing across polished silverware and crisp white tablecloths. The air buzzed with the murmur of affluent diners, the clink of wine glasses, and the soft hum of a jazz quartet in the corner. Kendra Williams sat at the head of a mahogany table, her posture relaxed but her eyes sharp, taking in the scene. Tonight was Lucas's night, her husband's moment to bask in the glory of a major contract for his startup, a deal he'd hyped for weeks. The table was a theater, and Lucas Miller was the star, or so he believed. Kendra's long, wavy hair cascaded over her shoulders, catching the candlelight as she sipped her sparkling water. Across from her, Lucas leaned back in his chair, his tailored gray suit pristine, his smile a practiced blend of charm and bravado. His mother, Eleanor, sat to his right, her pearl necklace gleaming as she nodded at his every word. Chloe, his younger sister, scrolled through her phone, her manicured nails tapping the screen, no doubt crafting an Instagram post to flaunt the evening's opulence. The three of them formed a chorus of adoration, their voices rising in a crescendo of praise for Lucas's latest triumph. "Lucas, darling, this contract is just the beginning," Eleanor said, her voice dripping with pride, her green eyes glinting with a certainty that bordered on delusion. "You've always had that spark, a natural leader." She shot a glance at Kendra, her smile tightening. "It's no small feat, building something from nothing in this cutthroat world." Kendra's lips curved slightly, a practiced smile that hid the flicker of irritation in her chest. She'd heard this tune before. Eleanor's subtle digs, cloaked in civility, implying Kendra was merely a bystander in Lucas's ascent. She adjusted the silver ring on her finger, a gift from Lena, and let the moment pass. Chloe looked up, her blonde curls bouncing. "Totally iconic, Lucas. You're like killing it. This is giving major CEO vibes." She snapped a photo of her truffle risotto, the candlelight reflecting off her Pandora bracelet, another purchase funded by Kendra's wealth, though Chloe would never admit it. Lucas swirled his Cabernet, the glass catching the light like a trophy. "It's about vision," he said, his voice loud enough to draw glances from nearby tables. "This deal puts us on the map. 6 figures, maybe 7 by next quarter." His eyes flicked to Kendra, a challenge lurking beneath his grin. "Not bad for a guy who started with nothing, right?" Kendra set her fork down, the taste of her seared scallops fading. She knew that nothing was a lie. The startup, the office, the very wine in his glass, all of it traced back to her. The app she'd coded in college, the one that sold for millions at 24, had built this life. But Lucas wore his narrative like armor, and tonight, with his mother and sister as his audience, he was untouchable. Eleanor leaned forward, her voice syrupy. "Kendra, dear, you must be so relieved to have Lucas leading the way. It can't be easy stepping back from whatever it was you used to do to focus on family. Such a noble choice." The words landed like a velvet glove over a fist. Kendra's jaw tightened, but her expression remained serene. She'd long mastered the art of deflecting Eleanor's barbs. "It has its reward," she said evenly, her voice smooth as silk. "But I'm curious, Eleanor. What do you think I used to do?" Eleanor blinked, caught off guard, but recovered quickly. Oh, you know, that tech thing. Coding or something. But family is the real legacy, isn't it? She patted Lucas's hand, her smile smug. Lucas chuckled, a sound that grated like sandpaper. He leaned toward Kendra, his eyes glinting with something darker than usual. Wine, pride, or perhaps the insecurity he buried deep. Yeah, love, let's be real. You had your moment, but staying home, playing mom, that's not exactly world-changing. He paused, his grin widening, voice laced with a cruel edge. So tell me, how's it feel to be a loser? Sidelined while I build our legacy. The table froze. Chloe's phone clattered onto her plate. Eleanor's wine glass hovered midair, her lips parted in shock. The jazz quartet's notes seemed to falter, though the music played on. Kendra's heart thudded, but her face betrayed nothing. She met Lucas's gaze, her brown eyes steady, unyielding. The word loser echoed in her mind, not as an insult but as a revelation. This wasn't just arrogance, it was betrayal, a public unmasking of the resentment he'd nursed for years. Kendra tilted her head, her smile cold and deliberate, like a blade being drawn. And how's it feel, Lucas? She said, her voice clear and cutting. Knowing this loser's bankrolling your legacy for the last time? The air turned to ice. Lucas's grin vanished, his face paling as if slapped. Eleanor gasped, her pearls clicking as she clutched them. Chloe's eyes darted between them, her phone forgotten. The weight of Kendra's words settled like a guillotine, severing the illusion of Lucas's dominance. For a moment, no one spoke. The restaurant's hum continued, oblivious to the battlefield their table had become. Kendra took a slow sip of her water, her movements precise, her composure unshaken. Inside, her mind raced. She'd spent years supporting Lucas, quietly funding his dreams while dimming her own light. His startup, his office lease, Chloe's influencer lifestyle, Eleanor's country club dues, all threads woven from her fortune. And yet, here he was, mocking her in front of his family, daring to call her a loser. Lucas forced a laugh, but it cracked, betraying his unease. Come on, Kendra, don't be dramatic. You know, I'm just joking. His eyes pleaded for her to play along, to restore the facade. Kendra set her glass down, the clink loud in the silence. Joking, she repeated, her tone flat. Funny how your jokes always cut the same way. She stood, smoothing her navy dress, her movements graceful but final. Excuse me, I need some air. She walked toward the restroom, her heels clicking on the marble floor, every step a declaration. The eyes of nearby diners followed her, sensing the shift in the room. Behind her, she heard Eleanor whisper, "She's too sensitive," and Chloe's nervous giggle. Lucas said nothing, his silence louder than any defense. In the restroom, Kendra stood before the mirror, her reflection a portrait of restraint and resolve. Her fingers brushed the silver ring, Lena's gift, grounding her. Lucas's words had been a spark, igniting a fire she'd long suppressed. She wasn't the loser here. She was the architect of their world, and he'd just reminded her of her power. The question wasn't how it felt to be sidelined. It was how long she'd let him believe he could define her. As she returned to the table, her phone buzzed in her clutch. A news alert about a dip in her tech stock portfolio. A small, temporary setback, but an opportunity. She glanced at Lucas, still pale, avoiding her gaze. The night had changed everything. She'd play his game one last time, not as his supporter, but as his reckoning. The hum of the restaurant faded into memory as Kendra Williams sat in her home office 3 days later, the glow of her laptop screen casting shadows across her face. The news alert from the fateful dinner lingered in her mind. A 15% dip in her tech stock portfolio, a minor blip in her vast wealth, but a perfect catalyst. Lucas's words from that night, loser, still stung like a fresh wound. Each syllable a reminder of the facade she'd upheld for too long. She'd built their life, his startup, their home, Chloe's influencer empire, all from her brilliance. Yet he dared to mock her. Tonight she would test him, not with anger, but with strategy. The house was quiet, the kids asleep upstairs, their soft breathing a faint comfort through the baby monitor. Kendra's fingers hovered over her phone. the silver ring from Lena glinting under the desk lamp. She'd seen Lucas's unease at the restaurant, the way his bravado crumbled when she declared her financial cutoff. Now she'd push further, feigning vulnerability to see if loyalty lived beneath his charm. She opened the stock app, the red numbers glaring, and rehearsed her approach. The door creaked open, and Lucas stepped in, his suit jacket slung over his shoulder, his tie loosened from another late strategy meeting. "Hey," he said, his voice softer than usual, as if testing the waters after their tense drive home from the dinner. "You're up late. Everything okay?" Kendra turned, her expression carefully crafted, eyes wide, brows furrowed, a trace of worry she didn't feel. "Not really," she said, her voice low. "The stock portfolio took a hit today. 15%. It's unsettling." She let the words hang, watching his reaction. Lucas's smile faltered, his eyes darting to her laptop. 15%? That's rough, but it'll bounce back, right? He stepped closer, his hand grazing her shoulder, a gesture that once felt warm, but now seemed calculated. "You don't need to worry. I've got this contract locked in." Kendra leaned back, her fingers tightening around her phone. "It's more than that, Lucas. We might need to cut back. Your startup, Chloe's spending, the house. I need us to be a team right now." Her voice trembled slightly, a deliberate crack to draw him in. "Can you support me through this?" The room stilled, the air heavy with expectation. Lucas's face shifted, his charm giving way to something raw. Panic, perhaps, or the flicker of a man cornered. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing toward the window. "Cut back? Kendra, you can't be serious. The startup's at a tipping point. This contract is my legacy." His voice rose, sharp and defensive. "You can't let your mess tank my career." Kendra's heart clenched, not from surprise, but from the confirmation of her deepest fears. She'd hoped, foolishly, for a shred of empathy, a moment where he'd choose her over his ego. Instead, his eyes narrowed, his jaw tight. "You're becoming a burden," he snapped, the words slicing through the air like a blade. "I can't have your problems dragging me down." The word burden echoed, a cruel reprise of his dinner taunt. Kendra's face remained calm, but inside a fire roared. She stood, her movements deliberate, and crossed to the desk, closing her laptop with a soft click. "My problems," she repeated, her voice steady now, devoid of the vulnerability she'd feigned. "Good to know where we stand, Lucas." He froze, sensing the shift. "Kendra, I didn't mean it like that. I'm just stressed. The contract—" "Save it," she cut him off, her tone ice cold. "You've made yourself clear." She turned away, her wavy hair swaying as she moved to the door. "I need to make a call. Good night." Lucas stood rooted, his mouth opening, then closing as she left the room. The hallway was dark, the silence broken only by the faint hum of the baby monitor. Kendra slipped into the guest room, locking the door behind her. Her phone was already dialing Lena, her best friend, her anchor. The line connected on the second ring. "Kendra, it's late. You okay?" Lena's voice was sharp with concern, her lawyer's instinct sensing trouble. Kendra exhaled, the weight of Lucas's betrayal settling like a stone. "He called me a burden, Lena. I tested him, played the worried wife, and he folded. Said my problems can't ruin his career." Her voice trembled, not with sadness, but with a fury she could no longer contain. "I'm done." Lena's sigh was audible, a mix of empathy and resolve. "I'm sorry, Kay, but let's be real. You knew he might fail this. What's the stock situation? For real?" Kendra glanced at her phone, pulling up the hidden accounts Lucas knew nothing about. "The dip's real, but it's nothing. My other investments, offshore, diversified, are untouched. He doesn't even know they exist." A bitter laugh escaped her. "He thinks he's the provider." Lena's voice turned steely. "Then it's time to show him who's been holding up this house. You want to move now? Legally, we can lock him out of everything by morning." Kendra paced, her bare feet silent on the hardwood. "I want to, Lena, but I need to be smart. He's built his whole identity on my money. I want him to feel what it's like when it's gone." Her mind raced, mapping out the steps. Bank accounts, credit cards, Chloe's spending, the startup's lease. All of it tethered to her. "Do it," Lena said. I'll have the paperwork ready by dawn. Freeze his access, protect your assets. He'll wake up to a new reality. Kendra nodded, though Lena couldn't see. He called me a loser, then a burden. Let's see how he handles being neither. She ended the call, her fingers trembling with purpose. Outside, the night was still, the suburban street bathed in moonlight. But inside, a storm was brewing, one that would upend the life Lucas thought he controlled. She sat on the guest bed, the baby monitor's soft glow a reminder of her daughter upstairs. For her, Kendra would be strategic, not reckless. Lucas's betrayal had clarified everything. Her years of sacrifice, dimming her light to prop up his ego, were over. Tomorrow she'd call the banks, the lawyers, the accountants. Tomorrow Lucas would learn what it meant to stand alone. As she lay back, the stock alert still glowed on her phone, a minor glitch in a fortune she'd built with her own hands. Lucas's words replayed, not as wounds now, but as fuel. The man who'd called her a burden would soon face his own reckoning, and Kendra would be the one to deliver it. The guest room was dark, save for the faint glow of Kendra Williams's phone screen, its light tracing the sharp lines of her face. Lucas's cruel words from the night before, burden, still echoed, a venom that had stripped away the last vestiges of her patience. His betrayal, unmasked during her calculated test, had ignited a fire she could no longer contain. Kendra sat on the edge of the bed, Lena's promise ringing in her ears. We can lock him out by morning. The clock read 2:14 a.m., but sleep was a distant thought. She opened her banking app, the hidden accounts Lucas knew nothing about, glowing like a secret arsenal. It was time to act. By dawn, Kendra was in her home office, the soft hum of the air conditioner blending with the rapid click of her keyboard. Lena, true to her word, had sent a flurry of emails, legal documents, bank forms, and a step-by-step plan to secure Kendra's fortune. The stock dip, a mere 15% blip in her public portfolio, was insignificant against the millions tucked away in offshore accounts and diversified investments. Lucas had built his empire on her wealth, believing it his own. Today, that illusion would shatter. Kendra's fingers moved with surgical precision, transferring funds, freezing joint accounts, and rerouting automatic payments. The joint account she left for Lucas held $5,000, enough for groceries and gas, but a far cry from the lavish lifestyle he flaunted. She paused only once, her silver ring catching the morning light, a reminder of Lena's unwavering support. By 7:30 a.m., the deed was done. Lucas's credit cards, Chloe's shopping sprees, the startup's office lease, all severed from her fortune. She leaned back, a quiet satisfaction settling in her chest. Downstairs, the clatter of dishes signaled Lucas's morning routine. He emerged from the kitchen, coffee mug in hand, his hair still tousled from sleep. Morning, he said, his tone cautious, as if testing the waters after last night's argument. You sleep okay? Kendra met his gaze, her expression unreadable. Fine, she said, closing her laptop. You might want to check your accounts today. Things have changed. Her voice was calm, a blade wrapped in silk. Lucas frowned, his coffee mug pausing midair. What's that supposed to mean? You'll see, she replied, standing to leave. The baby monitor crackled, their daughter's soft coos pulling her upstairs. She left Lucas staring after her, confusion creasing his brow. By noon, the fallout began. Kendra was in the nursery, rocking her daughter, when her phone buzzed with a voicemail from Eleanor. Kendra, this is unacceptable, Eleanor's voice hissed, her usual polish fraying. Lucas says the office rent payment bounced. You're putting his entire career at risk. Honestly, you're becoming a burden to this family. The words stung, but Kendra deleted the message without a second thought. Eleanor's venom only sharpened her resolve. Lucas's reaction came an hour later. Kendra was in the kitchen, slicing apples for a snack, when he stormed in, his phone clutched like a weapon. What the hell did you do? His voice was low, trembling with a mix of anger and panic. The office payment was declined. Chloe's cards, too. Even the damn gym membership. Explain, Kendra. She set the knife down, her movements deliberate. I told you last night, she said, her eyes locking onto his. I'm done being your burden. You wanted to build a legacy? Do it without my money. Lucas's face drained of color, his charm crumbling like cheap plaster. You can't just... Kendra, this is our life. The house, the startup, everything. His voice cracked, betraying the fear he'd hidden for years. You're cutting me off? Just like that? Not just like that, she said, her tone ice cold. You called me a loser, Lucas. A burden. So I'm stepping out of your way. Let's see how far your legacy goes now. She turned back to the apples, dismissing him without another glance. He stood frozen, his phone slipping to the counter. Kendra, please. We can talk about this. I was upset last night. I didn't mean... You meant every word, she cut in, her voice steady but lethal. And I'm done talking. She walked past him, leaving him to grapple with the wreckage of his hubris. By evening, the ripples spread. Chloe's frantic call came as Kendra folded laundry, her voice shrill through the speaker. Kendra, my cards aren't working. I was at Nordstrom, and it was so embarrassing. What's going on? Kendra's response was curt. Ask your brother, he's the visionary. She hung up, her focus shifting to an email from Lena. Lena's message was concise. Account secured. Lucas has no legal claim to your private investments. Next step, monitor his moves. He might try to spin this. Kendra nodded to herself, anticipating Lucas's next play. He'd always been a performer, weaving narratives to mask his dependence. But narratives wouldn't pay the bills. That night, as Kendra tucked her daughter into bed, her phone buzzed again. A text from Lucas. We need to fix this. I'll make it right. Dinner tomorrow? She didn't respond. Instead, she opened her investment portfolio. The numbers a quiet testament to her genius. She'd built this empire at 24, coding through sleepless nights while Lucas partied through college. He'd never understood her sacrifice, her brilliance. Now he'd learn. The next morning, Kendra woke to a new alert. Lucas had posted on LinkedIn a vague sob story about unexpected financial hurdles threatening his startup. He painted himself as a resilient entrepreneur, bravely facing personal challenges. Kendra's lips pressed into a thin line. He was already spinning the narrative, casting her as the problem. She forwarded the post to Lena with a single word. Predictable. Lena called within minutes. He's playing the victim, she said, her voice sharp with disgust. But he's got no leverage. Your assets are airtight. Want to push back? Not yet, Kendra said, her mind racing. Let him dig his hole. I want the world to see who he really is. She hung up, her gaze drifting to the nursery, where her daughter's mobile spun lazily. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about showing her daughter what strength looked like. As the day unfolded, the consequences mounted. Chloe's Instagram stories shifted from designer hauls to cryptic quotes about toxic people. Eleanor called again, her tone sharper, accusing Kendra of sabotaging the family. But Kendra's focus was elsewhere. She opened her laptop, pulling up the legal documents Lena had prepared. Every account, every investment, every cent was now beyond Lucas's reach. The man who'd called her a burden was about to learn what it meant to stand alone. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of Kendra Williams' home office, casting slatted shadows across her desk. Lucas's LinkedIn post from the previous day, a pathetic attempt to paint himself as a beleaguered entrepreneur, still lingered in her mind, its vague allusions to personal challenges, a thinly veiled jab at her. She'd frozen his access to her fortune, leaving him with a mere $5,000 in their joint account. And the consequences were unraveling faster than she'd expected. Eleanor's venomous voicemail, branding her a burden, had only steeled her resolve. Kendra sipped her coffee, the bitter taste grounding her as she awaited the inevitable fallout. Her phone buzzed, a new voicemail from Eleanor shattering the quiet. Kendra, this is beyond reckless. Eleanor's voice seethed, her polished tone cracking like thin ice. Lucas's career is crumbling because of your selfishness. His office, Chloe's future. You're destroying this family. You've always been a burden, and now you're proving it. Kendra deleted the message mid-sentence, her jaw tight. The word burden, wielded again like a weapon, only confirmed she'd made the right call. Eleanor's blind loyalty to Lucas was no surprise, but her vitriol was a spark to Kendra's fire. Downstairs, the front door slammed. Lucas's footsteps pounded up the stairs, his usual swagger replaced by a frantic edge. He burst into the office, his shirt wrinkled, eyes wild. Kendra, what the hell is going on? he demanded, brandishing his phone. The landlord just called. The office rent didn't clear. They're locking me out tomorrow. And Chloe's blowing up my phone. Her cards are dead at some boutique. Fix this, now. Kendra leaned back in her chair, her expression unyielding. I told you, Lucas, I'm done bankrolling your fantasy. You wanted to be the visionary? Figure it out. Her voice was calm, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in his eyes. Figure it out? He snapped, pacing like a cage animal. You think I can just snap my fingers and replace your money? The startup, the house, Chloe's whole lifestyle, it's all tied to you. His voice broke, revealing the panic beneath his bravado. You can't do this to us. I already have, she said, her tone final. She stood brushing past him to check on their daughter, leaving him rooted to the spot, his phone trembling in his hand. By midday, the dominoes were falling. Chloe's call came as Kendra folded onesies in the nursery, her voice shrill with desperation. Kendra, my card got declined at Sephora, in front of, everyone. Lucas says you did this. What's your problem? Kendra's response was curt. Your lifestyle's on your brother now. Good luck. She hung up, her focus shifting to an email from Lena. Landlord confirmed. Office lease terminated tomorrow. Chloe's cards are toast. Lucas is spiraling. Stay sharp. Kendra's lips pressed into a thin line. Lucas's empire, built on her wealth, was crumbling, and he had no one to blame but himself. She glanced at her daughter's crib, the soft mobile spinning above. This wasn't just about her pride. It was about teaching her child what strength looked like, what it meant to stand firm against betrayal. That evening, Lucas tried a different tack. He found Kendra in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, the rhythmic thud of the knife filling the silence. He leaned against the counter, his usual charm dialed up, his smile practiced but strained. Kendra, let's talk, he said, his voice softer, almost pleading. I got heated yesterday. I'm sorry. You know I need you. We're a team, right? Let's fix this together. Kendra didn't look up, her knife moving with precision. A team, she repeated, her voice low. Funny, I don't recall you mentioning that when you called me a burden. She set the knife down, her eyes meeting his. You don't get to charm your way out of this, Lucas. You made your choice. His smile faltered, his hands clenching. Kendra, please. The startup's dead without you. Chloe's freaking out. Mom's... He stopped, catching himself, but it was too late. Your mom, Kendra said, her voice sharp, called me a burden this morning. Seems like a family theme. She stepped closer, her presence commanding despite her calm. You've been living a lie, Lucas, and I'm done funding it. He opened his mouth, but no words came. For the first time, his charm failed him, his confidence unraveling like a cheap suit. He turned and left, the door closing softly behind him, a surrender in its quiet. By nightfall, the cracks were spreading. Kendra scrolled through Instagram, where Chloe had posted a cryptic story, a black screen with white text. Some people only lift you up to let you fall. The comments were a mix of sympathy and curiosity, with one follower asking, is this about your brother's startup drama? Kendra's phone buzzed again, a text from Lena. Heard from a mutual friend. Lucas was at a bar last night, telling everyone you're having a breakdown. He's spinning hard. Ready to counter? Kendra's fingers tightened around her phone. Lucas's victim narrative was predictable, but it stung all the same. She typed back, let him talk. It'll bury him. She opened her investment portfolio, the numbers a quiet testament to her power. Years ago, she'd coded her way to millions, her brilliance a secret she'd buried to prop up Lucas's ego. Now, that brilliance would be her weapon. The next morning, the fallout intensified. A call from the bank confirmed the joint account was nearly drained. Lucas had tried to withdraw the remaining $5,000, only to find it locked to essentials. Chloe's Instagram was silent, her usual posts of designer bags replaced by nothing. Eleanor's silence was louder, her absence a sign she was regrouping, perhaps plotting her next attack. Kendra sat at her desk, Lena's latest email open. Legal team's ready. He can't touch your private accounts. Next move? Kendra's gaze drifted to a photo on her desk, her daughter smiling in her arms. Lucas had called her a loser, a burden, but he'd never seen her true strength. He would soon. As she closed her laptop, A new text from Lucas flashed on her screen. "We need to talk. I'm sorry. Let me make this right." Kendra didn't reply. His apologies were too late, his desperation too clear. The man who'd mocked her was now scrambling in the ruins of his own making, and the world was watching. The suburban street outside Kendra Williams' home was deceptively calm, the late morning sun filtering through oak leaves. But inside, a storm was brewing. Lucas's desperate text from the night before, "I'm sorry. Let me make this right," sat unanswered on her phone, its words hollow against the memory of his betrayal. His LinkedIn sob story, painting himself as a valiant entrepreneur facing personal challenges, had only deepened her resolve. Kendra had severed his access to her fortune, and the fallout, Chloe's dead credit cards, the locked office, Eleanor's venomous voicemails, was spreading like wildfire. She stood in her kitchen, stirring oatmeal for her daughter, the rhythmic clink of the spoon grounding her as she braced for the next wave. Her phone buzzed, a new message from Lena. "He's at it again. Spotted at a networking event last night, telling everyone you're unstable and tanking his startup." People are talking. Kendra's jaw tightened. Lucas was spinning a narrative, casting her as the villain to salvage his pride. She set the spoon down, her mind sharp as she texted back, "Let him dig. The truth's coming." Lena's reply was instant. "It already is. Check your email." Kendra opened her laptop, the screen glowing with an email from Lena titled "Game Changer." Attached was a draft of a blog post by Lena's journalist friend, Mia Carter, a tech reporter with a knack for unearthing hidden stories. The title read, "The Hidden Tech Genius Behind MJ, Misjudged and Misnamed." The post didn't name Kendra directly, but painted a vivid picture. A young black woman who'd coded a revolutionary app in college, sold it for millions, and now lived quietly, her brilliance overshadowed by a partner who claimed her success as his own. Mia's words were surgical, hinting at Lucas's dependency without a single libelous line. Kendra's pulse quickened. This was the spark she'd been waiting for. By noon, the blog was live, shared across tech forums and social media. Kendra scrolled through Twitter, where hashtags like "sheer hidden genius" and "sheer tech truth" trended. Comments poured in. "This partner sounds like a leech. How do you hide a millionaire coder?" Chloe's Instagram, once a shrine to luxury, was now a battleground. Her latest story, a cryptic, "Some people only lift you up to let you fall," drew sharp replies. "Girl, is this about your brother's flop?" Kendra's lips curved into a faint smile. The world was waking up. Lucas's reaction came at 2 p.m. He stormed into the living room, where Kendra was folding her daughter's tiny clothes, his face flushed with fury. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, thrusting his phone at her. The blog post glowed on the screen, its words a mirror to his lies. "Some reporters dragging my name through the mud, saying I'm living off my wife. You did this, didn't you?" Kendra folded a onesie, her movements deliberate. "I didn't write it," she said, her voice calm but edged with steel. "But it's true, isn't it? You've been living off me for years, Lucas, and now you're crying victim because I stopped." Her eyes met his, unyielding. "You made this mess." His hands shook, his charm replaced by raw panic. "You think this is a game? My investors are calling, asking questions. Chloe's getting roasted online. Mom's livid. You're destroying us." His voice cracked, betraying the fear beneath his anger. Kendra set the clothes down, stepping closer. "You destroyed yourself when you called me a loser, a burden. You wanted the spotlight, Lucas. Now you've got it." She turned away, dismissing him as she headed upstairs, her daughter's laughter echoing from the nursery. By evening, the whispers had become a roar. Kendra sat at her desk, scrolling through emails from Lena. Communities buzzing. Neighbors saw Lucas at the bar again, whining about you. Chloe's silent online, first time in years. Kendra opened Instagram, where Chloe's followers were relentless. "How's that Gucci bag now, sis?" A local news site picked up the story, framing it as a tech mystery about an unsung genius. Eleanor's country club friends, once her loyal echo chamber, were texting her with questions, their tone laced with doubt. Kendra's phone buzzed with a call from Lena. "It's working," Lena said, her voice electric. "Lucas is crumbling. I heard he tried to pitch an investor today, and they laughed him out of the room. Said they read the blog and want to meet MJ instead. Lena paused. You ready for what's next? He's cornered, Kay. He'll either break or beg. Kendra leaned back, her silver ring glinting as she twirled it. Let him beg, she said. I want him to face what he's done. She hung up, her gaze drifting to the nursery monitor, her daughter's soft breathing a reminder of why she was fighting. Lucas had mocked her, diminished her, but the world was beginning to see her truth. That night, Kendra stood at her bedroom window, the suburban street quiet under a blanket of stars. Lucas hadn't come home. A text from him arrived at 11:47 p.m. I didn't mean for this. I'm sorry. Can we talk? Kendra stared at the words, her heart a tangle of anger and pity. His apologies were too little, too late, but they signaled a crack in his armor. She didn't respond, letting the silence speak for her. The next morning, Kendra woke to a new development. A neighbor's email forwarded a group chat from the country club where Eleanor's friends debated the blog. Is Lucas really just a front? I always thought Kendra was the brains. Chloe's Instagram remained silent, her usual posts replaced by a void that spoke louder than any caption. Lucas's LinkedIn had gone dark. His profile picture changed to a generic headshot, as if he could hide from the truth. Kendra sat at her kitchen table, sipping coffee, her laptop open to Mia's blog. The comments section had exploded, with tech enthusiasts demanding to know MJ's identity. She wasn't ready to step into the spotlight, not yet. But the narrative was shifting, and Lucas's lies were unraveling. He'd tried to bury her, but the world was digging her up. As she closed her laptop, her phone buzzed with a new message from Lena. He's at your front door. Looks rough. Ready to face him? Kendra stood, her resolve unshaken. Lucas's reckoning was here, and she would meet it head-on. The late morning light spilled through Kendra Williams' living room window, casting a soft glow on the hardwood floor. Her phone still buzzed with Lena's message. He's at your front door. Looks rough. Ready to face him? A warning that Lucas was here, his world crumbling under the weight of Mia Carter's viral blog. The post had exposed his lies, branding him a fraud who'd built his life on Kendra's fortune, while calling her a loser and burden. The whispers of neighbors, the silence of Chloe's Instagram, the skepticism of Eleanor's country club friends, they'd stripped Lucas bare. Kendra stood at her desk, her silver ring glinting as she steadied herself. This was the moment she'd been waiting for, not to gloat, but to see if he could face the truth. The doorbell rang, a sharp note cutting through the quiet. Kendra smoothed her dress, her heart steady despite the storm of emotions within. She opened the door to find Lucas on the porch, his once pristine appearance unraveling, shirt wrinkled, hair disheveled, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. The man who'd smirked at her across a candlelit table now looked like a stranger, his bravado replaced by something raw, almost broken. Kendra, he said, his voice hoarse, barely above a whisper. Can we talk? Just you and me. His hands fidgeted, no phone or coffee mug to hide behind. She stepped aside, gesturing him in. Say what you need to. Her tone was even, but her eyes held a challenge, daring him to offer more than empty apologies. Lucas shuffled into the living room, pausing by the couch where their daughter's stuffed bear lay abandoned. He didn't sit, as if standing gave him some semblance of control. Kendra leaned against the wall, arms crossed, her silence a wall he'd have to breach. The air was thick, the weight of the past week, his taunts, her financial cutoff, the blog's fallout, pressing down like a gathering storm. I messed up, he began, his voice cracking. That blog, it's everywhere. Investors are bailing. Chloe's a wreck. Mom stopped calling. Everyone's looking at me like I'm some kind of con artist. He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes darting to the floor. I tried to fix it, Kendra. I told them you were struggling, that it wasn't my fault, but you lied, she cut in, her voice sharp but controlled. You told the world I was unstable to save your ego. You called me a loser at dinner, a burden when I asked for support. And now you're here because your lies caught up with you. Lucas flinched, his shoulders slumping. I know, he said, barely audible. I know what I said. I know what I did. He finally met her gaze, his eyes glistening with something she hadn't seen in years: vulnerability. When I called you a loser, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about me. Kendra's breath caught, but she held her ground, her expression unyielding. Go on. He paced a step, his hands clenching. From the moment we met in college, you were unstoppable. You coded that app, built a fortune, and I was just the guy tagging along. I loved you, Kendra, but I hated how small you made me feel. His voice broke, a tear escaping down his cheek. Every deal I closed, every pitch I made, it was your money, your success. I thought if I could just make it big, prove I was enough, I wouldn't feel like a fraud. But I couldn't. So I lashed out. I called you a loser because I'm terrified that's what I am. The confession hung in the air, raw and unfiltered. Kendra's heart twisted, a mix of pity and anger. She'd spent years dimming her light to lift him up, only to be mocked for it. Yet here he was, stripped of his armor, admitting the truth she'd always suspected. She stepped closer, her voice low but firm. You didn't just lash out, Lucas. You betrayed me. You stood in front of your family and tore me down to feel bigger. And when I needed you, you called me a burden. Words like that don't just vanish. I know, he said, his voice trembling. I'm sorry, Kendra. I'm so sorry. I was scared. Scared of losing everything. Scared of people seeing me for what I am. Nothing. He sank onto the couch, head in his hands, his sobs muffled but real. I don't know how to fix this. Kendra watched him, her resolve unshaken but her heart heavy. His brokenness was genuine, but trust wasn't rebuilt with tears. You can't fix it with words, she said, her tone softening but resolute. You've spent years living a lie, Lucas. If you want a way forward, it's not through apologies. It's through change. Real change. He looked up, his eyes red, searching hers. What do I do? Tell me, I'll do anything. She held his gaze, her mind racing. This was the moment to set terms, to demand more than promises. But she needed time. To think, to consult Lena, to ensure her daughter's future wasn't tied to his fragility. I'll tell you what I want, she said, but not today. You've got work to do, Lucas. Start by facing yourself. She turned toward the stairs, her daughter's laughter drifting from above. Lucas stood, wiping his face, his posture defeated but not defiant. I'll wait, he said softly. I'll try. Kendra didn't respond, her footsteps steady as she climbed the stairs. The confession had cracked something open, a fragile possibility, but trust was a long road. She reached the nursery, her daughter's smile grounding her. Lucas's words were a start, but they weren't enough. He'd have to prove himself, not to her, but to the truth. Outside, the suburban street was quiet, but the world beyond was buzzing. Lena's text arrived as Kendra closed the nursery door. Heard he showed up. What happened? Kendra typed back. He broke. Admitted everything. I'm not ready to forgive. Lena's reply was swift. Good. Let's make him earn it. Call me. Kendra sat by the crib, her mind already mapping the next steps. Lucas's confession was a turning point, but the path forward would be hers to define. The man who'd mocked her was gone, replaced by one who might finally see her. But she wasn't ready to let him back in. Not yet. The soft hum of a cafe on the edge of town enveloped Kendra Williams as she sat across from Lucas, Eleanor, and Chloe. The clink of coffee cups a stark contrast to the tension that lingered from their last encounters. Lucas's confession 2 days ago, his raw admission of insecurity and betrayal, had cracked open a door, but Kendra wasn't ready to walk through it. His words, I was talking about me, echoed in her mind, a fragile thread of honesty she couldn't ignore. The viral blog exposing his dependence on her fortune had left him humbled, with Chloe's social media silent and Eleanor's accusations muted. Now in this neutral space, Kendra held the power to set the terms for their future. Her silver ring glinted as she folded her hands, her gaze steady on the family before her. Lucas sat hunched, his eyes fixed on the table, his usual charm replaced by a quiet resignation. Eleanor, her pearls absent, looked smaller, her face tight with discomfort. Chloe fidgeted with her phone, its screen dark, a far cry from her usual influencer flair. Kendra's daughter napped in her stroller beside her, a reminder of why she was here, not for vengeance, but for a future rooted in truth. I've thought about what you said, Lucas, Kendra began, her voice calm but unyielding. Your apology means something, but it's not enough. If we're going to move forward, there are conditions. She slid a single sheet of paper across the table, her terms outlined in precise, lawyer-drafted lines, courtesy of Lena. Read them, all of you. Lucas took the paper, his hands trembling slightly. His eyes scanned the words. Shut down the startup, secure a stable job, attend weekly therapy to address insecurities, publicly acknowledge Kendra's financial support, and apologize for misrepresenting it. Eleanor's lips pursed, but she said nothing. Chloe's eyes widened, her fingers tightening around her phone. Kendra, Lucas said, his voice low, this is a lot. Shutting down the startup? That's my dream. Your dream was built on my money, Kendra replied, her tone even. You called me a loser, a burden, while spending my millions. If you want a future with me, with our daughter, you start fresh. No more lies. She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto his. And you apologize, publicly, to everyone you misled. Eleanor shifted, her voice sharp but restrained. Kendra, surely we can resolve this privately. Public apologies? That's humiliating. Humiliating, Kendra repeated, her gaze shifting to Eleanor. Like being called a burden by your family? Like watching your husband take credit for your work? You don't get to dictate terms, Eleanor. Not anymore. Her words cut through the cafe's hum, silencing Eleanor's protest. Chloe spoke up, her voice small. What about me? I didn't do anything. Her eyes darted to Lucas, seeking rescue, but he remained silent. You lived off my money, Chloe, Kendra said, not unkindly. Your bags, your trips, your brand, all mine. If you want to keep that lifestyle, get a job. Chloe's face flushed, but she nodded, a flicker of shame crossing her features. Lucas looked at the paper again, his jaw tight. I'll do it, he said finally, his voice barely audible. The startup's already dead. Investors pulled out after the blog. I'll get a job. Therapy too. But the apology, he hesitated, his pride a visible weight. I'll do it. For you. For our daughter. Kendra nodded, her expression softening but resolute. You have 1 week. A public post on LinkedIn, a letter to the community paper, and face-to-face apologies to your investors and mom's friends. No half measures, Lucas. The meeting ended with a tense agreement, the family leaving in silence, their steps heavy with the weight of change. Kendra pushed the stroller home, her mind clear. Lucas's confession had been a start, but trust would be earned, not given. A year later, the suburban street felt different, less a cage, more a canvas. Kendra stood in their new, smaller apartment, sunlight streaming through modest windows. She was preparing a keynote for a tech conference, her laptop open to slides about her new role as an angel investor, mentoring young coders, especially women of color. Her daughter played nearby, stacking blocks with a giggle that anchored Kendra's heart. Lucas entered, his tie loosened from his job as a project manager at a local firm. He'd shut down the startup months ago, trading his grandiose pitches for steady work. Weekly therapy had softened his edges, his once defensive eyes now carrying a quiet respect. Need help with the slides? He asked, setting down his briefcase. I noticed your data visualization could use a tweak. Kendra smiled, a genuine warmth she hadn't felt in years. Sure, take a look. He sat beside her, his suggestions thoughtful, his presence no longer a shadow, but a partner's. The transformation wasn't perfect. Scars lingered from his betrayal, but it was real. Chloe had taken a part-time job at a boutique, her Instagram now a mix of authentic posts and apologies for her past entitlement. Eleanor, chastened by the public fallout, had written a private letter to Kendra, acknowledging her role in enabling Lucas's lies. The family dinners, now monthly at Kendra's insistence, were no longer battlegrounds but tentative steps toward respect. As Kendra finalized her slides, Lucas paused, his voice soft. I'm proud of you, you know. The conference, your investments, you're incredible. His eyes held no trace of the man who'd mocked her, only admiration. Kendra met his gaze, her smile steady. Thank you, Lucas. But this isn't about me proving anything. It's about us both being honest. She closed her laptop, her daughter's laughter filling the room. Her sweetest revenge wasn't Lucas's downfall, but his redemption. A man who'd faced his demons and learned to stand beside her, not behind her. The evening sun bathed the apartment in gold, and Kendra felt a quiet triumph. She'd reclaimed her light, not just for herself, but for her daughter, for the coders she mentored, for the truth she'd fought for. The family she'd rebuilt wasn't perfect, but it was real, grounded in respect, not illusion. Thank you for joining Kendra's journey, a story of strength, betrayal, and redemption. What did you think of her stand against Lucas's lies and her path to rebuilding a family rooted in truth? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how this resonated with you. Stay tuned for more stories that inspire and challenge. Until next time, thank you for listening.